am so excited to introduce the next panel, The Women Behind the Game, moderated by Duke University Athletic Director Nina King. The floor is yours.
Wow. Oh my goodness, we're here, ladies. Great to see everybody. Clearly we still have some folks out there still eating lunch, so maybe they'll come in and join us here in a few moments. But thank you. I am neither a journalist, producer, or host, and so I'm gonna try to moderate this conversation to the best of my ability, but we've got 4 rock stars on this panel that I'm really excited for you all to hear about. As the business of sports evolves, women are increasingly leading from the front office, shaping team strategy, driving revenue, building global brands, and transforming the way that our fans are connecting to our games. And so today we're really fortunate to hear from these 4 women who are not only breaking barriers, but truly setting the standard for what leadership in sports looks like. So let me give you kind of a brief bio on each one. We could be here all day because these women have done some things. But let me just give you a quick bio on my friends here on the couch. Yael West has worn just about every hat in soccer, from a standout at UNC, yes, I can say that with a smile, and the U.S. women's national team, to entrepreneur and founder, to serving as the first executive director of the NWSL Players Association. Today, as a general manager and head of soccer operations for Gotham FC, she is helping to shape the future of one of the NWSL's most exciting clubs, both on and off the field. Yael West. Kim Ng is a trailblazer in every sense. She spent more than 30 years in Major League Baseball front offices before making history as the first woman to serve as a general manager in MLB when she took the helm of the Miami Marlins. Today, she is commissioner of Athletes Unlimited Softball, bringing her barrier-breaking experience to a league that's reimagining truly how athletes and fans experience the game. Kim. Jen Rosati, legend in women's basketball, an NCAA champion at UConn, a WNBA standout, a gold medalist with Team USA, and after a decorated playing career, went on to coach for over 20 years. Today, she's bringing that championship pedigree to the front office as the president of the Connecticut Sun, guiding one of the league's premier franchises. Jen. And Christine Manger, the president of the Los Angeles Sparks, one of the WNBA's most storied franchises. She's focusing on innovation, growth, deepening fan engagement, and she's leading the Sparks into a new era of opportunity while helping advance women's basketball on a national stage. Before that role, she played a key part in the front office of the Las Vegas Aces. Christine. And as you all have been, as you know, I am Nina King, Vice President and King Compton Family's Director of Athletics and Adjunct Professor of Business Administration at Duke University. So we're going to spend the next few minutes here diving into these ladies' journeys and the impact they're making in their organizations, how they're changing the game truly from the inside out. So to start, I'd like to ask each of them kind of a big picture question to set the tone. So for each of you, and we'll just kind of go down the row here, as I've mentioned, you're reshaping what leadership in sports looks like in the front office, from basketball to soccer to softball. So ground us in your journey. Can you share a defining moment, either in your playing, coaching, or executive career, that truly shaped how you lead today and what it means to you to be the woman behind the game?
So I'll start us off. Hi, everybody. It's hard to see you a little bit because of the lights, but really a pleasure to be here and an honor to speak alongside these women changing the game. You know, I was thinking about how to answer this question, and as a soccer player, I always knew that to become the highest level player I needed to be outside my comfort zone. So a lot of the environments I was in, I wasn't always the best player. I was the only girl on an all-boys team, or I was playing up an age group, or even as a professional, I never felt like I was, the go-to player on my team. And so for me to transition who I was as a player into being a leader, whether it was a captain of my team or I think a pivotal moment for me was in recognizing all of a sudden in NWSL that I was a veteran and I was a player in the league who others might look to kind of shape the future. When it was time and we realized we needed representation and we needed to form a players association, kind of the mantra that I adopted on a personal level was, if I want something to be done or done differently, why not me? Like, why should I wait for somebody else to do it? Why should I wait for another player or somebody outside the league to help organize us as players? So that's when I really started to realize, well, I can talk to my teammates. I can do things differently because we're going to be the ones that need to change things. And that has become kind of my personal leadership mantra. If I would like something to be done a certain way, if I'd like a team to, a professional team to be run like I wanted it to be run as a player, why not become a GM? If I want Gotham FC to do things a certain way in the world game and be leaders in the world of women's soccer, well, why not us? Why should we not pave the way? Why do we need to wait for someone else to do it? And I think, it requires being bold, and that's something that's really important to us at Gotham, and it's scary. And it was scary for me as an individual, as a player, to take those leadership moments and to realize that I was going to go out on a limb and speak for others. But it's become a defining feature of who I have been in the game of soccer, but it's translated off the field into my life as well. And now there are moments, whether it's at my kids' school or whatever it is, where I recognize, if I want something to be done a certain way or communicated a certain way, why would I wait for someone else to do it?
Thanks. Kim, how about you? Defining moment.
Well, I guess first I would say this. In terms of my general personality, I do think that there's probably this inner strength that people don't get to necessarily see. I try and hide it well. And that really comes from just, from my vision of what a leader should be. Like, you should never really see your leader sweating, right? Like, you want to feel confidence and you want to be led by that person. And then another part of it is, this was when I was probably mid-career, but a little bit on the junior side. And I had talked to my boss, and we were both pretty young, and I said, hey, I know we're going to go in and release this player, but don't send them to the minor league side where I have to do it, because you're just delaying the inevitable. And he said, okay, no problem. We're going to be fine. And so we get into the room, and the player starts to cry when we tell him, hey, you're on the downside of your career. And he starts to cry, and he says, okay. And he gathers himself, and he says, okay, what are the next steps? And my boss looked at me, and he said, call Kim. We're going to send you to the minor league side. I looked at it, I said, oh, my gosh. So I said, here's my phone number. Call me. So a couple days later, I was on the minor league side, and this player called me, and he said, Kim, am I coming in to get released? And I said, yeah, you are. I said, but I will try and help you find another job somewhere. And I think it was at that point that, and he basically said, thank you just so much. And I think it was at that point that I realized that people just want truth. And I think when you lead with integrity, and I think when you lead with, and I know this has become a bit of a buzzword, but authenticity, I think people really appreciate that, and so that was probably the defining moment.
Definitely. Jen.
Yeah, I think this is a hard question to pick just one, but I think usually immediately back to when I was 25, I was playing professionally for the Houston Comets, and I got a phone call from the athletic director at the University of Hartford. And she left me a message and said, hey, I wanted to talk to you about an open coaching position. I had never coached before. I was still in the midst of my professional career, so I assumed that she meant an assistant coaching position. So I called her back. I was in Houston. We were literally in the middle of the WNBA finals because we had played in New York, and then went back to Houston and had Teresa Weatherspoon hit that shot from three-quarter court and got delayed an additional game before we won. But I can remember when I finally called her back and she said, no, I'm actually seeing if you'd be interested in our head coaching position. I said no. I came home, she called me again. She said, just come over and talk to me. So I did, and thank God that I did. Pat Miser was the first coach at Penn State to offer a full women's basketball scholarship. And she was one of only 13 female athletic directors in Division I back in 1999 when she hired me. Little did I know at the time that saying yes would allow me to be in the presence of someone who became a really important figure in my life. Somebody who showed me firsthand that a woman, a mother, a professional, a wife, a sister, could have it all, could do it all, could be at the top position in her career and do it successfully and lead with compassion and authenticity. She allowed me to grow up in the profession of coaching. She allowed me to learn how to be a leader. She taught me that family can be a part of your career. I had both of my children while I was coaching at the University of Hartford. And she taught me that it was my responsibility to open doors for the next generation of women. And so when I think about saying yes to her at 25 and not really knowing what it would mean for my career, and now many more years later, I won't say how many, I'm in a position to do the same thing for my female staff, open the doors for the next generation of leaders. And I will always give most of that credit to Pat Miser for giving me the opportunity with no experience to lead the next generation of young women.
Christine, how about you?
So originally I was going to talk about graduating from business school, or when Bill Lambier opened the door for me to help launch and lead the ACEs. But honestly, I would say the personal moment that has really impacted me most was about 3 years ago. It's actually when I met Yael. I was leaving the ACEs. My dad was diagnosed with a form of blood cancer. I was getting divorced. And in a span of 6 months, I lost everything I loved at the same time. And it was such a defining moment in my life because I really had to step away and say, well, what do I want to do and who do I want to be? And when I show back up in the world, because eventually I got to come back into the workforce, what is that going to look like? And that's when I really committed to living a life in integrity with my values, and I evaluated every role within that framework. So now how I show up as a leader is really authentic. There are good days, there are bad days. We laugh a lot at the Sparks, we have a lot of fun, we hold ourselves really accountable, but it's that moment, just like sitting in the mud in the swamp, as my therapist used to call it. I'd be like, when does the swamp end? That I really learned what I was made of and how I wanted to show up in the world. And so authenticity, I agree, while a buzzword, also can really ring true personally and show up in an organization. So I credit that really rough period of time with just allowing me to show up as a better person, which makes me a better leader today.
Amazing. 4 incredible journeys. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. So let's get to some business, what you all are doing all day, every day. So Yael, let's start with you. Obviously an incredible arc from elite player to entrepreneur, player advocate, and now front office executive. So with that kind of 360 degree of the sport, how do you approach building a club that serves both players on the field and the broader ecosystem around them while still chasing championships?
So yes, it's a big question. I think, going back to authenticity, as an athlete, what I learned was the idea that you should strive to be at the top, but being comfortable with the fact that you're never there. And so at Gotham, what we say is always building, never finished. And that really has become to embody how we view our journey, both on the field and what our players experience, because, I live that journey. I have so much respect for the fact that we all have hard jobs, but their job is by far the hardest. They are contemplating their existence. That's, there's a finite amount of time they can do what they love and they can perform on the field, and how they show up every single day, whether they're starting or not, is in some way defining who they are in their career trajectory. And so I think we all at Gotham have a really big respect for that, and we've taken that off the field, and we are very honest about our ambition. We state a big vision. We want to become a global brand. We want to impact women's soccer, not just within NWSL, but worldwide. And in doing so, we're also very comfortable to be honest about where we are right now and where we're not. And that kind of pulls together everything from what we do on the field to how we support our players in performance medical operations on the sporting side, and then transitioning into the business side, how we view things. We are, as a club, coming from a long-standing history of not being at the top of the table, not chasing championships or being close to that. And so we've had a lot of work to do over the past 4 or 5 years. We rebranded from what was Sky Blue FC to Gotham FC, and now we are incredibly ambitious in winning and changing the game. But we're also very new in that journey, and we're honest about that. And in a lot of ways, we're still building the infrastructure and the kind of the base of the pyramid that we need to be able to rise to the top. So it's messy. It's not always easy. It's very familiar to me and how it felt to be a high-level athlete, where you have some days where you think, how did I work my whole life and I just can't get it right? And then other days when it all comes together and it's so worth it for those moments. So yeah, we say always building, never finished, and I think we'll always say that because that's kind of who we are, and that also is really embodied in where we're located, being right outside of New York City, and having that ambition, but also the honesty to say, almost no days are we actually feeling like we're even close to being there.
That's great. Kim, talk to us about the lessons that you learned as a woman breaking barriers that you're bringing to a league that is incredibly innovative and trying to really redefine the sports experience for the athletes and the fans.
Yeah, no, so I've been, I'm with Major League Baseball or 4 of its clubs for 3 decades, so it's a lot. But, in terms of what I think I'm bringing, it's obviously the experience, and I think the way to think about things systematically and sort of see that, see all of this at the top of the pyramid at its highest levels. And I think for, us now starting leagues, what we're all striving for. So I think that is really important to sort of have a vision of what it is you're aiming for. And then to also know what it's like to be at the bottom. And, and I say that, in terms of my career, but, always striving for that. So I think, for the front office executives as well as the athletes, it's being able to impart that vision and communicate it and have everybody understand that maybe while you might not be there today, you hopefully will be at some point, and these are the steps that we need to take to get there.
Thank you. Jen, similar to Yale, as a former player, coach, and now in the front office, how, as the team president, do you balance the business side of the organization with the heartbeat of the locker room and foster strong player culture and values, but while also meeting the financial realities of a high-profile business?
Yeah, good question. Well, I call Christine a lot.
Yeah.
I will say, stepping into this role over 4.5 years ago, once again, like when I was hired as a coach, I had no idea what I was doing, but I learned a lot from my counterparts, and I feel like leadership transfers, right? If you have a strong culture and a strong vision, if you lean into your values and you lead with integrity and authenticity, it really doesn't matter who you're leading. You surround yourself with people that are really good at what they do, and you let them do their job. But this past offseason, we were in a very unique position where we lost our entire starting lineup. And so we were in, quite a rebuild in terms of the basketball side of the house. New coach, new staff, almost an entirely new team. And it actually was a little refreshing to have the opportunity to kind of reset that culture and reset that foundation. We had been on a championship run for so long with so many veterans. It was very nice to have these rookies come in with this renewed sense of like what it means to connect to a brand, right? And what it means and how excited they were to build their own culture within the Connecticut Sun organization. So with the front office being, a lot of people being set for the last 3 years, we leaned into that. We leaned into storytelling, and we leaned into like trying to find successes that defined us outside of our on-the-court performance. And I think that bled from one side of the house to the other, and I think it was really important. We did an exercise recently where I said, hey, everybody needs to brag. I want to know what your first half successes of the season were, and we're going to talk about it. We had record in ticket sales and amount of people coming, attendance into our games. We had our high in partnership revenue. We had content that was being created that's, up for award submissions. We were making impact in the community, not just dollar-wise, but through donations and through representation. And I felt like we needed our players to see that we were going to continue to work for them and for the brand, regardless of how many wins and losses we were, because we didn't want to be defined by that. And I felt like we were able to find this balance of pushing to be competitive, have a high standard, but also have some fun with it and find a way to have a positive impact for our community, for our fans. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty around the future of our team, so how are we going to create a space where people felt like they could come to our arena and be a part of our family and experience something away from maybe their day-to-day troubles, feel like they were safe and feel included in the experience, and really celebrate our players. And our players were able to help us do that because they signed every autograph and they took every picture, and they stayed longer than any player we've ever had after every game to engage with our fans. And so I feel really proud that we were able to, you know, kind of reset our foundation and represent our brand in a really positive way that was tied to good people, both on the basketball side and in the front office.
Should be proud. Keep bragging. Christine, how are you structuring or maybe even reimagining the business model for women's professional basketball to drive both growth and sustainability in a rapidly evolving sports market?
So I think I always say I'm the non-traditional team president. I'm a business person by trade. I was a retail buyer, I have an MBA, I was on the brand side in CPG. So when I came into the Las Vegas Aces organization, I had fresh eyes, similar to Jen. I didn't really know much of like the business of sport, but I figured it out. And so at the end of the day, these transferable skills, they'll take you anywhere. And so I think what I did well there that I've brought over to the Sparks is really looking at the foundation of our business. And we are a 29-year franchise, championship DNA, but we haven't won in a minute. And off the court, we were sort of letting that gold erode. And so one of my first tasks was really leaning into, okay, what do we do really well? And like, if that's a short list, that's okay. If it's a long list, that's better. Where do we need to really dig in and have some accountability about where things went left? And so we've been on this journey for the last, call it 18, 20 months since I came into the role of really just resetting. And I can walk you through all of the different resets, but it was deep. And where we're at now is revenue's up 70%. We're fourth in attendance in the league. Like, I can rattle off all these stats, but more than anything, like, it's a great culture. People come to work and they smile. We're in a hybrid work environment, which I know some people love, some people hate. I'm actually an office person, I enjoy it. We come 3 days a week and people like to come to the office, right? They like to collaborate. And so it's really, you know, resetting the foundation, and now we get to be innovative. That's, I think, what helped me in my previous experience to really push into those growth edges. So I'm excited to see where we can go now. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and I'm gonna brag for my friend over here. She's very self-deprecating, but they've been doing an incredible job. So shout out, Jen.
Awesome. You all are, truly. All right, so Yael, tell us, how do you see innovation and digital tools really kind of shaping how clubs like Gotham FC are moving forward in this environment?
You know, yeah, it's interesting. When you shared that question with me ahead of this panel, I was thinking about it a lot. Quite honestly, we're still at a really strong foundation building stage of what we're doing. So yes, we want to use innovation and technology, but actually, like, innovation in and of itself is not a core tenet of how we view our current project. We are really putting into place the foundational elements of a high-performing culture, both on and off the field. I think the wonderful thing about modern technology in this day and age is it allows you an insight into the build and what the athletes go through and what we're doing off the field as well that is very unique. And through our content production and plans we have for, you know, future of sharing kind of the athlete journey behind the scenes, I think there are a lot of really special things we can do and use technology for, but actually innovation from a technology perspective is not currently part of our strategy. That being said, something we're really interested in and we're kind of, that is new to us, is with our performance and medical field, looking at female-specific programming and performance in medical-wise and how female athletes are different than other athletes. And it's, you know, we're just starting to scratch the surface of conversations surrounding that in women's soccer, at least. And so that is an area where I think we will probably first look to innovate. But outside of that, we're really in a foundation building stage. And I think people maybe don't quite realize how young women's soccer is from a professional standpoint. You know, you look at the U.S. women's national team, who has paved the way for women's sports in general in a lot of ways and been kind of a leader, winning World Cups, Olympic gold medals. But from a professional standpoint, an NWSL is still really an emerging league, and we have a long, unfortunately, kind of a long-standing history in our country of leagues starting and not working. So when it comes to NWSL and Gotham and where we are, we're focused on getting the basics right and kind of what we say is world-class basics, and that's on the field and off the field. That being said, definitely looking at the ways we can innovate. I think first for us will have to do with the performance side of things, and also using technology to share the journey with people who maybe can't be there in person in the stadium, and kind of growing our business and growing our audience that way.
Love that. Makes complete sense. World-class basics. Kim, how about you? What opportunities do you see for softball and maybe women's sports more broadly to build a global fan base over the next, let's say, 5 years or so?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. So softball has been in and out of the Olympics over the last 20 years or so. In 2028, obviously the Olympics are coming back to the U.S., and we have a chance. Softball is in it. And so I think, for us to be on that global stage, for the entire sport to be on that global stage, there's a professional Japanese league, there's now a professional Mexican league, and us. And so I think for us now to have all of those global eyes on us is going to be a really pinnacle moment for the sport. We talk about it fairly often in the office about what we're going to do in 2028 and how we're going to strive for that to be, obviously this was our inaugural year, and we had a great platform in terms of some of the lead up that we had to our season, but now to have this extra and to be working with Team USA and what that means leading up to the Olympics as well as past the Olympics, it's a large platform for us, and so really excited about that happening.
Exciting for sure. Jen, how about women's basketball? I mean, we're having a cultural moment right now around women's basketball. So what role do you see maybe the Sun playing in shaping the momentum as we continue to move forward? Also, let's say over the next 5 years.
Well, I would like to know what we're going to be doing in the next 5 years. Fair. I think I'm really impressed by the group of team presidents in our league, and I think one of the reasons I've been able to be successful in this role is because of the level of collaboration that we have and sharing best practices, but also the investment that the league is making in technology and providing platforms to us to be able to utilize that in a way that is more innovative. I can remember listening to somebody speak when I first started about how we need to make data-informed decisions, and for me, that was like a whole new world. So investing in technology around player health and recovery and load management was like speaking my language, right? Investing in technology in the front office, it was like way above my head. And so I can remember one meeting when Christine was like, I'm still working in spreadsheets. Anyone else? And I was like, me. And I was like, at least I'm not the only one. But just continuing to build a staff that is innovative and has a creative mind and wanting to think about doing things outside the box. I think sometimes we all think about trying to compare ourselves to our peers. And we're in Uncasville, Connecticut. We're not going to have the same game vibe that the New York Liberty have in Brooklyn or that the Vegas Aces have out in Vegas. And so we've really tried to kind of embrace like finding this, environment that's truly our own. I had a fan the other day come up to me and say I had season tickets to both the Connecticut Sun and another team in the league. I drive 3 hours each way just to see your games because I really enjoy your game vibe more than the other team that I used to hold season tickets for. That's like the biggest compliment you can receive. And I know it's not for everybody, everybody has their taste, but I think when you can create an environment and a space for people to feel really good about, and your staff is working really hard to understand what our fans want. And so how do we utilize the technology to figure out who our fan is and what makes them come back to the game? That's something that we're still exploring at the Connecticut Sun. But we're at a place now where the league is catching up to the level of technology that's needed. And yes, there's increased revenues and there's increased viewership. There's also increased expectations that we make a profit, right? So, we need to find that balance between having great, creative, innovative, talented staff, and also invest in the technologies that we need to continue to move our individual businesses forward, which therefore will move the entire league forward.
Great, thank you. We only have a minute left, and so I want to get just a couple rapid fire questions in because I think these are kind of fun and you all want to know. Let's start with you, Christine. Who was your sports hero growing up?
Lisa Leslie.
Lisa Leslie.
Lisa Leslie.
Awesome. Jen, how about you, sports hero?
Mia Hamm.
Kim?
I have more than one.
Give us a couple.
Thurman Munson, Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King.
I was going to say Mia Hamm, but I'll do my second, Michelle Akers.
Great. If you could trade jobs with another woman in sports for a day, who would it be? Christine.
This one's kind of easy for me. Kathy Engelbert. I would love to sit in that seat.
I'm going to say Christine. LA queen over here.
I was going to say this one.
Yael, how about you?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, like any of these. Our owner, Carolyn Tish Blodgett.
Awesome. Great. All right. And last question to touch my world a little bit. If you were a student athlete today, what would your dream NIL deal be?
Probably something that includes mental wellness, beauty, and just well-being in general.
I was going to say some sort of high-end cultural brand or fashion brand. That's what seems to be all the players want nowadays.
I was going to go straight to it, Nike.
Yeah, mine is such a bad answer, but my favorite store is CVS. So it has everything. I don't know.
Get this woman a CVS deal. I love it. Well, thank you all for such an insightful conversation and inspiring conversation. I think what we learned here today that leadership in sports is not just about wins and losses. It's truly about creativity, vision, authenticity, and bringing our true selves to work and leading the folks that we have an opportunity to lead. And thank you all for joining me. Keep supporting women in sports, athletes, executives. Watch women in sports. This has really been an inspiring day, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for having us.